We've all been there, haven't we? You know, you're dealing with some annoying problem in your building. Maybe a faucet won't stop dripping, or the elevator's making that weird grinding sound
Oh,
again.
yeah, definitely relatable.
And that first reaction, that like urge to point the finger, it nearly always lands right on the building management, doesn't it? That central office, the UN, as our source calls it. We just assume they're the ones responsible.
Well, it's a very human thing to do. Blame the authority figure you can see, or at least name. But what if that quick blame game actually stops us seeing what's really going on?
Exactly. And that's kind of the core idea we're digging into today. We're looking at a transcript from a YouTube video. It's by Sergei Konsovoy, and the title translates roughly to "Don't curse the housing maintenance office" or "Don't curse the VUN."
Right.
So our mission here is to really get into the speaker's head. Why does he think just blaming the big organization might be, well, missing the point? He starts with this really great example.
He does. He paints this picture of two apartment buildings, basically identical,
Yeah.
built at the same time, same plans. Even the main construction crews were the same. You'd expect them to be pretty similar down the line.
Oh, you absolutely would. But here's the twist, the really interesting part. The crucial difference, he says, wasn't the main build, it was the teams that installed the utilities.
Ah, the plumbing, the electricity,
Yeah.
the vital stuff.
Exactly. Each building got a separate crew for that specific job. And this seemingly small detail, it led to massively different results.
Yeah, it's quite stark. In one building, the utility guys did a good job, followed the plans, worked competently, and the result, well, things work. Relatively fewer problems, happier residents, presumably.
Makes sense.
But the other building, constant headaches, problems with plumbing, electrical issues, stuff that the speaker suggests came from just really poor work.
Or, and this is quite a jump,
Yeah.
maybe even deliberate sabotage.
Sabotage. Wow. Okay, that really throws a different light on it. And he uses this contrast, this tale of two buildings, to make his main point, right?
Precisely. He argues that often the root of the problem isn't necessarily the big overarching organization. It's the specific actions or, inactions of particular individuals or maybe small groups within that system.
So it's not just about the system itself, but who's operating within it.
Right. He's not saying systemic problems don't exist, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's pushing us to look beyond just the name on the door, the "you" in this case. Consider the people actually doing the work. What were their skills like? Were they motivated? What were their intentions, even?
And to kind of hammer home that point about potentially negative intentions, he brings up Gogol.
The quote about a disinterested love of baseness.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that a bit. Disinterested love of baseness. What's he really getting at there? It sounds pretty intense.
Well, the way the speaker interprets it, it's suggesting some people might do bad things, act maliciously, or even just carelessly, simply for some kind of internal kick. Not for money, not for power, just because.
Just for the sake of being nasty, almost. That's a disturbing thought.
It is, and it suggests a potential for negativity that goes beyond simple mistakes or incompetence.
And he links this idea directly back to the two buildings.
He does. He sort of posits maybe that shoddy utility work wasn't just accidental. Perhaps it was an example of this baseness. Maybe workers deliberately cut corners, did a lousy job out of, spite? Or maybe just feeling like nobody would check, nobody cared.
That's quite a dark possibility.
It is. And he mentions briefly, almost as an aside, how extreme situations like war sometimes bring this out in people too, acts of cruelty or, total negligence that don't seem to offer any direct personal benefit. It makes you confront a potentially uncomfortable side of, us, humans.
Which loops back perfectly to his warning about just blaming any big company or agency.
Exactly. Don't just curse the organization without digging a bit deeper.
Right.
He uses a funny reference, actually, from a Soviet film, Gentlemen of Fortune.
Yeah.
He talks about Korea radishes. Apparently, it's a sort of lighthearted slang term for the movie for, like, a bad apple, a wrong'un.
Okay, radishes. Got it. So, like, bad people hidden inside.
Pretty much. He uses it to say, look, within any system, any organization, you might have these specific radishes who are actually causing the trouble. It's not automatically the whole system that's rotten.
So avoid the broad brush. Look for the radishes.
Oh, yeah, essentially. It's really a call for critical thinking.
Yeah.
He uses the Russian phrase "onestro."
Which
He's like saying you need to figure things out, use your head, think it through. Don't just react and blame the first thing you see.
Okay, so use your brain. Which, interestingly, leads him to another point about thinking itself.
Yeah, it's a neat transition. He talks about how sometimes people seem to actively avoid thinking too hard, how we can be drawn towards simpler answers, maybe like those offered by some belief systems, because they reduce the mental effort.
The burden of thinking, yeah. He suggests it comes from being tired of thinking.
Right. Tired of thinking. Like, our brains are just overloaded, chaotic inside, and we just want someone, anyone, to give us the easy answer.
It's relatable, isn't it? That feeling of mental fatigue. He actually mentions he plans to talk more about this, referencing 4 states of consciousness in a future video. Something about achieving more mental clarity.
Interesting. But for now, his point is that we need to overcome that weariness, right? Shake off the mental dust. He apparently talked about this in his playlist before.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming that mental energy, that focus.
Because ultimately we have this tool, our mind, as he calls it, and we need to actually use it. And not just use it, but find some satisfaction in the process. He encourages finding enjoyment in, like, figuring things out, like how healthy people enjoy various aspects of life. We should enjoy understanding.
Intellectual curiosity as a pleasure in itself, not just a chore.
Right. It's about actively engaging, not just passively receiving information or defaulting to blame. He even brings up Osho.
Oh.
And noting that even someone like Osho, who was dedicated to enlightenment, found it really difficult to help people escape what he called the trap of human existence.
So it's a real challenge getting people to think differently, to engage their minds more actively.
It seems so. It underlines the difficulty. Then there's this other kind of unexpected reference
Go on.
to Ivan Vasiliev.
Mm.
Something about a dog's life, and the advice being to just enjoy life.
Okay. How does that fit in?
Well, maybe it's a nod to resilience, like even when things are tough and complicated, finding ways to cope, to find some joy is important. He also quickly mentions Gurdjieff and how he had different approaches for different students, suggesting there isn't just one magic bullet for, personal growth or better thinking.
It feels like he's pulling from lots of different places to support this core idea.
Which seems to be about resisting those automatic, often negative reactions.
Mm-hmm.
He really emphasizes the need to cope.
Which means, like, turn it over in your mind.
Yeah, exactly. Process it internally. Mull it over before you react outwardly.
And why is that so important?
Because, he argues, the internal processing helps build up. Well, he calls them blocks. Blocks against toxification.
Toxification. That sounds serious.
It does, but I think he means that almost automatic tendency we can have to just blame the world, blame external forces whenever something isn't perfect, that knee-jerk negativity.
Ah, okay. So processing helps stop that immediate jump to everything's bad, it's someone else's fault.
Precisely. He contrasts that automatic thought path. Something's wrong, the world system is flawed, someone specific, usually just screwed up, with a more considered response.
Oh, yeah.
One that involves actually analyzing the specifics of the situation.
Thinking before cursing, basically.
You could put it that way, yeah. And then he wraps up with just a brief mention, sort of expressing his own skepticism about overly negative predictions about the future, hoping for better outcomes.
A little touch of optimism there at the end.
Which I think brings us nicely back to the main takeaway from this deep dive. What starts as a pretty specific comment, don't automatically blame the housing maintenance office, actually unfolds into this much bigger call for deeper thinking, for looking beyond the surface before we assign blame.
Yeah, that story of the 2 buildings really sticks with you, doesn't it? It's such a clear illustration of how individual actions way down the chain can have huge consequences.
Right.
So for you, listening in, hopefully, this perspective feels a bit more empowering, maybe. Instead of just throwing your hands up in frustration and blaming some big, faceless entity. Like the Earth, yeah. It encourages maybe taking a breath, thinking a bit more critically, asking, okay, what specific factors, maybe even which people's actions or decisions could be contributing to this problem I'm seeing?
Which leads us to that final thought for you to chew on. Where else in your life, maybe at work, maybe with services you use, maybe even online platforms, might that immediate reaction to blame the big entity, the corporation, the government department, whatever, might that be hiding a more complicated picture?
Yeah, a reality that might actually be more actionable if you understood the specifics.
Exactly. Where could looking beyond your own version of the UA, your own immediate target of blame, actually lead you to a better solution, or at least a much deeper understanding of what's really going on?
Well,
Something to think about.